Vasishta continued, "My teachings are not meant for those, O Ram, whose intelligence has been silenced by firm faith in the reality of this illusory world and the consequent striving for the pleasures of this world. What foolish man will endeavour to show a colourful forest to one who refuses to see? Who will strive to educate that man whose nose has been eaten away by leprosy in the delicate art of distinguishing different perfumes? Who will instruct the drunkard in the subtleties of metaphysics? Who will make inquiries concerning village affairs from a corpse lying in the crematorium? And if a fool does justice, who can dissuade him from such foolish attempt? Even so, who can instruct that ignorant person who finds it difficult to govern the mind, which is dumb and blind?" So Vasishta seems to be bewailing the fact that the teachings might not be understood by many people. I suppose when you do kind of get some insight into this kind of thing, you can be filled with tremendous enthusiasm to pass it on. But you soon realise that you're trying to pass it on to a brick wall in 99.999% of cases. You just have to live with that, basically. And I'm doing these videos on YouTube. I don't expect them to be particularly popular or of interest to most people. You know, people would rather look at a fluffy kitten. Maybe I think I probably would as well. I'm just doing this, and if anybody gets something out of it, that's great. It's my way of responding to and appreciating the Yoga Vasishta. You learn to be quiet about this stuff in general conversation. If people ask, then you put it to them and see how far you can go with it. But you get a sense that people generally, they might be interested, and you can take them so far, and then you notice the distance appearing in their eyes, and you think, okay, I'll just leave it at that now. I'll leave it at that. So we've been talking about the mind, and the dumb and blind and inert mind. So the mind hasn't been given any credit whatsoever here. The mind is simply a bundle of reflexes. It's patterns that have been set up, and we respond blindly to these patterns. We think we've got some kind of free will. There's no awareness within the mind. The mind is the opposite of awareness. In the previous chapter we were told how it's non-existent. And why do we let the mind trouble us so? Because the mind can be very destructive. The mind isn't always conducive to our own happiness or survival even. It's a very dangerous thing, isn't it? And it's been stated that the mind doesn't exist. And this is what Vasishta says in the next paragraph. In fact, the mind does not exist, and hence rest assured that it has all the time been conquered. Like what it said earlier on, it is forever dead. But how can it be dead if it's never been alive? And how can it be conquered if it doesn't exist? I think the point here is, if we realise its true nature, it's not a problem, or it shouldn't be a problem. He who finds it difficult to overcome the non-existent mind suffers from the effects of poison he has not taken. And you can only realise that the poison, that you haven't taken the poison and the non-existence of the mind, when you're actually established in awareness. Awareness of what? Simply awareness. Awareness, which is your true nature. The wise man sees the self all the time. That's what I meant by awareness. And he knows that all movement arises from the movement of the life force. And I take life force as meaning the attention, and what propels the attention here and there. He knows too that the senses perform their respective functions. What then is known as the mind? All motion belongs to life force, and all consciousness belongs to the self, and the senses have each their own power, which is the one that binds them all together. All these are indeed aspects of the one, infinite, omnipotent consciousness. Diversity is a word without substance. How does even the idea of diversity arise in you? So all motion belongs to life force, and all consciousness belongs to the self. So motion, life force, is the attention, and this is the mind, and consciousness, self, that's awareness. And it says here the senses have each their own power. Well, they don't. Even the senses, the senses are no more alive than the mind. Even less so, I would say, because the senses are actually a result of the mind. They're notional things. And what binds them all together? Well, they're all arising within the one infinite omnipotent consciousness. This diversity is an apparent diversity which arises in the infinite omnipotent consciousness. What indeed is the jiva, individual soul, but a word which has befuddled the intelligence of people? I'd be quite happy not to talk about jivas, but the Yoga Vasishta does talk about jiva quite a lot. But here it's being said that it's a notion which befuddles the intelligence. Even the finite or individualized consciousness is an unreal fancy. What can it do? What can it do? Normally the jiva is understood as the finite or individualized consciousness, which is a better way of understanding it. But this has been degraded into the notion of a soul, an eternal or immortal soul that transmigrates from one life to the next. But he's saying, so that the notion of an individual soul is being poo-pooed, but even the notion of a finite or individualized consciousness is no more than an unreal fancy. Seeing the fate of the ignorant people who are suffering because the mind that they have fancied into existence fails the truth which alone exists, I am filled with pity. And that's another reason for wanting to teach this. You know, it's like seeing people banging their head on a brick wall. You want to stop them doing it. You think, stop doing that, you're damaging yourself. And so Vasishta has got this understanding, and he sees how suffering arises from not having this understanding. So he wants to do something about it. But it's very frustrating because so few people can appreciate these teachings. In this world, fools are born only to suffer and perish. Every day millions of animals are killed throughout the world. Every day millions upon millions of mosquitoes are killed by the wind. Every day in the oceans the big fish eat the small ones. What is there to grieve? The stronger animal kills and eats the weaker animal in this world. From the smallest ant to the greatest of divinities, all are subject to birth and death. Every moment countless beings die and countless others are born, totally regardless of whether people like it or not, whether they rejoice or grieve. Hence it were wiser neither to grieve nor to rejoice over the inevitable. In other words, you can't do anything about it if people can't benefit from these teachings.